Welcome back to Car Mechanic Simulator 2021. Now, we made a slight mistake in the last episode. I said we'd achieved the trophy for reaching level 5 and we didn't. I was getting a bit ahead of myself. We do reach level 5 in this episode, so a small mistake on my part. Now, today we're working on the Hinata Moon MK1 with a job list that shows no jobs. No part has been discovered. So, for us, this will be our first time we have to discover everything ourselves. This will be fun, I'm sure. So, my first thought was test track. Easiest way to find out what's wrong with the car. So let's start the car and we can take it to a test track. Oh. Car will not start to no test track. This will not be as easy as I first thought. I thought, considering we now need to diagnose all the issues ourselves, it's time for us to actually buy some diagnostic equipment. We've got away with it so far. We're going to have to invest in ourselves a little bit. So, we're going to buy a few of these. We'll start with the fuel pressure meter. Obviously, it tests everything to do with the fuel. We're looking probably at the compression tester would be a good idea. The welder and charger, currently not needed. But fuel pressure meter definitely. The electronic multimeter will be helpful. Compression tester, yes. And the tyre tread. Do we need the tyre? I'm kind of thinking, will the car have an onboard diagnostic? We'll leave the others for the time being. But we can start our diagnostics. And hopefully this will show up some of the things we need to deal with. Fingers crossed. And there we go. We're already seeing issues. A few red parts already. That's a good start. So pistons with con rods, 2 of those need to be changed, and a camshaft as well. So far, I would say the diagnostic equipment is now coming into its own, and they're straight on the job list. Perfect. So what is next to diagnose? Let's have a look. Fuel pressure test. See if there's anything there we need to replace. It was only a matter of time really until we need to invest in the garage and our equipment. We've got away with it so far, but there was always going to be this time when we needed to do this. No parts for the fuel test, which means the fuel stuff is all good. That's a bonus for us. Electronics, let's have a look if the multimeter can pick up any issues. No, they seem okay. I was kind of fingers crossed every time we did a check of something to hope it showed up things. I think the electronics are actually okay. Yeah, all above. They're not orange, they're not red, they're all yellow. So they're worn but not excessively. So we don't need to do anything to do with the electronics. But even the starter's good. Perfect. Obviously the car doesn't start, so there's an issue. And the pistons did come up as an issue. That's probably going to be a big thing. Now, there is this mode here. We are speeding through it just to speed it up. It's where you can examine individual areas of the car, suspension, engine. If you've done the other tests, some things have already been examined. But this is where you can go through the car and it will show up the majority of things. You can't do wheels or brakes. They come under suspension but don't show anything up to blue brake pads or anything like that. But it's a good way of just checking everything throughout the car. You can see a red bar at the back there. Needs changing. So anything that is low will be red. Some will be orange. Yellow means they're yellow standard. So they're worn but not excessively. Same as the normal colorations on the parts as it is. So now we can actually start by draining the liquids. As we've diagnosed a decent amount at this point. So we can drain all the liquids. And we can start actually working on the car. Now, I will apologise for the length of this video. I've been trying to keep them under half an hour. This car, all in all, took about 2 hours. The reason for that will become very clear later. This is why I've sped up little bits. And there's been a few little edits just to try and condense it down. But yeah, the reason this took so long will become apparently clear. The title probably gives it away a little bit, admittedly. But that was only just one of the issues. There was many on this car. But we'll change the oil now. We're not going to earn the trophy of spinning oil anytime soon. I'm going to hold off as long as possible before we actually earn that trophy. So we're going to focus on doing everything correctly. And that is the oil done. So we can put the oil drain back. Strangely, I was thinking as well, whilst doing this car, of all the issues this car has. We haven't had to do tyres on a car since the tutorial. And I've been looking forward to doing tyres, and we've just not needed to. I think the first car we did after the tutorial had tyres involved. But that's it. It's surprising. I thought we'd do a lot more tyre issues. But we haven't had to. Right, we'll start with the engine. We know we've got some issues here. And we've also got, you can see the front sway bar down there is very worn as well. So there's a few things here. We're just having a little look around, see if we can spot anything. Obviously there's going to be other things to take off to get to other things. The exhaust manifold, we need to take off the throttle first. I don't think we've diagnosed everything, but we've diagnosed some. So it's worth taking a few things off just to have a look what's inside them. Is it worth it? Again, this is a different engine to others we've worked on. So things aren't in the same place as before. And that's the big thing. It's trying to remember what different engines and what they entail. So looking at that, don't think there's anything major. We've obviously got nothing major, I don't think. Do they need replacing? I don't think. They're yellow, but I don't think they actually need replacing. So ignition coils, are any of these red? There's an orange there. That's a red. So is that a red or an orange? It looks like we need to replace them, the coils there. That's easily done. So we're finding new things, even just by manually looking as well. And there is an issue straight away. You can see it when I'm not hovering over different parts. There is an issue straight away with the camshaft. So we're going to need to take off all the bits to hold it in place and get that out and get it changed. You can also see just down to the bottom left, there's another part down there that could be part of the suspension, I think, that needs looking at. Straight away I apologise for the beeping in the background. There was a car outside beeping its horn for someone to be collected. A little bit frustrating when you're trying to edit and voice over things, I know. Nothing we can do, unfortunately. I did think about cutting it out, but it just made more sense to leave it in. So that is the top part taken off. We now need to get to the side, and this is the problem of keeping the engine in the engine bay. And I've said this previously, we need to look at paying for, and I'm not sure how we go about getting one, but an engine lifter, an engine crane, as visibility is very small in these engine bays. So being able to lift the engine out would make a lot more sense right now to be able to get to all these parts. As you can see, our view is constantly obscured by different parts. And we could take out other parts to give ourselves a better view. But is that really an ideal way of doing things? Is it taking more time maybe? I'm not sure. So it's something we've got to look at. I don't even know how much they are. We're probably going to have a look to see how much we need and if we need something in advance. We may even need the expansion to the garage first, I'm not sure. So we need to take all these gears off, the cam gear, because we need to get the camshaft out and the cam gear is holding it in place. There we go, it still won't come out. So whenever something shines yellow, it means there is still something holding it off. If it's red, it means that's what needs taken off or something. So go to the timing gear side, and straight away I thought, yeah, this is probably the issue. So let's get these off. And I think there's a worn timing belt there. No, the belt's okay. It's the actual gear next to it, I think, is worn. But now we're able to take out the camshaft at least. So at least we now know we can get to it. Yeah, that gear there needs replacing. So even by having to take out the camshaft, I've actually found other things that need replacing. So that's a bonus in itself. There we go, that does need doing. The camshaft can now come out. Is there anything else we can see in this area while we're here that we can take out? Obviously suspension will be probably underneath. There's going to be a lot involved in that. But I think that's the majority of the parts of the engine now done. Just having a visual look just to make sure. It's always nice just to spend that moment just to actually have a proper look round. Yeah, I think we're going to have to take the wheels off to do the suspension, so we can leave that for the time being. Don't think there's anything else that's showing up. So even though we did all our tests, the examinations, we still don't know the full details of everything. So there's still a lot of manual checking to do. But so far, I think we have got a few parts we do need. So ignition coils, we need 2 more of those. We need a timing belt and a camshaft as well. So I think that's everything we need so far. So we just need to go to the shop and buy these parts, and then hopefully we can start putting some of this back together. Just double checking myself. I'm always worried of putting the wrong thing on the shopping list, buying a part we don't really need. And I knew I'd taken one off our shopping list, one of the parts we needed, and I didn't know which one it was, so I thought if I put them all back on again, it will double up some, but I know I need one of. Made sense to me. But it's so easy to buy too much of something, which then obviously is a cost on your profits. It's just about being methodical. I'm trying my hardest to be methodical. There are times I doubt myself, and as I'm not massively au fait with cars, I'm definitely learning, I'll give you that, but I'm nowhere near an expert on cars. But yeah, I'm learning so much just by playing this and tinkering, really. So now we need to put everything back in. We can put the tops back on, hold the camshaft in place. This is where probably increasing our screwing speed and things will help, because this does take time. Okay, and we've got a new replacement part for down here. There we go, 100%. Nicely done. Timing chain, we've got a new one of those as well. So it's starting to come together. Already you can see how long this car is taking. The engine to take apart, to replace parts, does take time. There's a lot to take off, there's a lot to put back on when you're done. Yeah, it's a constant time killer, essentially. But it is interesting at the same time. Ignition coils will now go back in. We only need to replace 2 from what we found. The yellow ones I think are okay. So we replaced 2, kept 2. We probably could have replaced 4. I wasn't sure if it'd be a waste of money. I didn't know if the bonuses would kick in or not. So 2 will do. We'll put the exhaust manifold and the throttle back on. And I think we are in a good position now with the engine, which is important. We've got all the side stuff to do down here now. So the cam gear can now go back on. And again, the biggest issue we're having working on engines is visibility. That's something we are going to have to look at in terms of getting an engine crane. The other thing I've been thinking about as well, although we're trying to save the £10,000 for the extension, which then allows us to fix parts, we can also buy a second lifter, but I just don't know when is the right time, because you can only work on one car at a time. It does mean we could have a story car on the go if we have the second lifter, and then do other people's cars, to then maybe, if we can't afford to have everything on the story car straight away, it's fine, it's still there. Other than that, you can't employ people, so I can't see a benefit massively. Maybe if you're working on your own car on the side, second lift is helpful there, because you can keep it there and it's in your garage, ready for when you're able to do anything with it. But I'm in 2 minds whether when we should buy the second lifter. So we just sold the parts that we got rid of, just, you know, keep the balance nice and good. So now we need to go underneath the car. I'm thinking suspension we need to look at. While we're doing this suspension, we'll have to take the wheels off, so we get a chance to look at the brakes, see if there's anything brake-wise we need to replace. I didn't pay too much attention to the story of the car, to be fair, so I didn't really... I should have looked more at it, and that would give us a better indication of what's needed. We're just going to check the brakes, just to see. No harm in taking them off and us having a look at the percentages. Brake pads I think are going to be okay though, yeah. Brake discs are generally right. Is there anything inside maybe? Don't know if there's something worn inside there. But we can see two parts here on the suspension. The front sway bar definitely needs replacing. What do we need to take off to get to it is the question. Just got to look at all the things that are connected to it. So it's good this side, I think. We can get the front sway bar off. We need to take the other side wheel off, the left front. So it's another chance to check the brake system on this side. See if there's any parts there that need replacing. Again, the brake discs, brake calipers and the brake pads don't look in bad condition. So that's something we probably won't need to replace. But there's one sway bar link is there. And that should be the front sway bar now able to come out. Yes, it can. So that definitely needs replacing. We know that. And then we've also got this front suspension. So the front brake axle, we can take that off there. The drive shaft, sorry, is what needs replacing. We'll take off the axle at the front on the right hand side. We should be able to get it out. Yeah, that's the axle, and there we go. There's a drive shaft. It definitely needs fixing. Needs a new part there. And I think that's everything. I'm just going to kind of a little look around just to make sure there's nothing we've missed while we're here. It just makes sense while bits are off and we can get to other bits. And I can see, if you look on the left and right braking systems, there's a very brown part inside the brakes. It's there. It's the bearing, I believe. We can get some from this side because we took out the front bits that connect there. I can't remember what they're called. We can actually get some from this side. Now, I saw this rusted screw here and thought, maybe the bush needs changing because of rusted screw. Rusted screws can be an indication that a part is worn. So I thought it was worth taking off to have a look. All the parts look okay, actually. They're yellow, they're not significantly worn. Probably okay. Another bush there. We can probably put that back. I didn't realise straight away that I'm actually putting a brand new part on. Don't think that was the part we took off. I think it's one we had in our inventory. It may be the same one, I can't quite remember now. There we go. I think there's nothing else here that I can see. Everything else looks nice and shiny. Let's have a look. So we've got two bearings, front sway bar and the front drive shaft. And lots of other stuff that we've taken off to get to this. So we can now buy those parts and get those back on. And I think we're making some headway. Like I say, it's just trying to be methodical, trying to make sure our shopping list is empty, unless we're buying stuff there and then. Getting rid of the parts that we can't fix. All the stuff in the inventory, I'm still in two minds what we should be keeping. I'm currently we're holding off until we can fix parts, and if we can't fix them, we know, and that will just be, you know, keep a mental note of what we can and can't fix. I believe you can't fix glass, which I'm not surprised. So we won't need to bother keeping glass. But we haven't really done body work at this point, which luckily we haven't had to because we can't actually fix any of it. And buying body work will be very expensive. I can't see it being very cost effective for us currently. We shall see. Hopefully we'll get to that sooner rather than later. But let's concentrate on putting all these parts back in the right order for a start. So the brake caliper's back on. And then the wheel can go back on. I think that's the front right now finished. And all sorted. As you can see, we're 20 minutes into the video. And I've cut bits, I've sped bits up, and still this is, you know, 20 minutes real time with bits cut and speeded up. This is why it took 2 hours. It's the amount of parts you need to take off to get to certain parts. Suspension is probably one of the worst for that. The rear is probably a lot worse than the front, to be honest. And there are other reasons, as you will see soon, that cause us this to take a long time. But yeah, suspension, there's a lot to take off before you can actually do anything. And the part you need is generally the last part you can take off. And I did wonder at this point, we're putting all the wheels back on, all the braking system back on. I'm thinking, hopefully we're done. We don't need to take these off again. I do wonder sometimes it's best to have the wheels off and leave them off until you're finished. Especially if you're looking at suspension issues. Just enables you to get to stuff better. Right, we'll have a look at the rear of the car now. We did see the rear sway bar previously on the examination. Now you can see it just about there. I'm trying to get an angle on it to get a decent view, and it's quite difficult to get a decent view on it, but you can see it. Just highlighted up, there we go, front rear sway bar. So what I'm going to do, we're going to speed up the process of taking this bar off, and we're going to actually go to the end. So we've just taken the last part of the suspension off, we can now take off the sway bar. It took me a while to get to the point of where we could take it off. There's quite a little other bits involved first. As you can imagine, it's quite linked into the suspension. So we're just looking around other things. It's a good job we did. As you can see there, that bushing needs replacing. And I only did this because I was curious. These bushings don't show up on any test, other than Test Track, I believe they do. But at this point, I just thought, well, let's just check them. We can see them. Let's check them while we're here. And I'm glad we did, because as you can see, there's at least 3 so far. Does this one need replacing as well? It does indeed. So that's 4 bushings that need replacing. So I'm glad we checked. And these are the kind of things that, you know, annoy me. They're so hard to find at times. All cars' suspensions are slightly different, but we need at least 4 there. We need the rear sway bar as well. The brake pads and everything that we took off, as we'll get into the sway bar, were all in good condition. Worn but good. So we don't need any of those. And then on our list so far, you can see the things we've done. The weird thing there, though, that is showing is 1 ignition coil has been replaced and 1 hasn't. So we'll need to go back and have a look at those. But the rear sway bar is on the list now. So the parts on the list only come up if you've taken the part off, or you've used a diagnostic tool to find it. They don't show up otherwise. So things like the clutch plate and things we found via diagnostics and examination. Rubber bushings, the only way I've found of finding them is either manually look, they don't show up on examination, or Test Track does show them up as well. But braking system, nothing shows that up. The brake calipers, brake discs, and brake pads, nothing shows them up. It's a visual examination to find those. And they'll only show up on a list where parts are unknown if you physically take them off first. But then I suppose this is where the realism comes in. These are little things you can't necessarily test for. And most braking systems, like the pads and stuff, you do visually look at them to check them. So it makes sense that you can't use any sort of diagnostics at this point. That's where the Test Track does come in useful. When it would have been more useful this car if this car started, but this car has quite a few issues. It's kind of a good job it didn't start. I don't know if we would have been able to keep it on the Test Track or not, considering there was so many suspension issues. You know, both front and back rear sway bars had it. Would we have been able to stay on the track? Would the suspension have held up? Probably not. So it's a good job we couldn't take it, to be fair. So we're just putting everything back on the rear end now. All the bushings back in as well. And we're going to skip ahead a little bit. And we're going to look at the gearbox. Now we know there was a couple of gear issues. It does say on the list, fire and examination. There were some issues with the gearbox. So we're going to take this apart. That's the clutch plate coming off. There we go. flywheel doesn't look in good condition either. Can't get the camshaft from here anyway. Camshaft's inside the engine itself. And it's in a yellow condition, it's not too bad to be fair. But we do need to put the gearbox back together. So we need 2 replacement parts in the gearbox. And those we knew about them parts because they'd come up on, I think it was examination they came up on. I don't think it was diagnostic tools. So at least we know that we've got to replace them though. Back into car parts. And we can replace the flywheel and the clutch plate. And I think big cars with lots of jobs like this is where you need to be organised. This is where organisation is key. You can easily get confused with what you've brought, what you haven't brought, parts that you've taken off, parts that you put back on. It's easy to miss something if you're not paying attention. There we go. So now we can put the gearbox back together. And that should be another part ticked off our job sheet. I didn't realise actually at the time we actually had some of these parts already in our inventory. They were slightly worn. I think it's on a previous story car we have. We'll just keep them in case we can fix them later on. I don't want to sell them and we can fix them and make money that way. I probably could have used them, but I bought new ones anyway because I didn't realise. It's too late by then. But gearbox back on, screw it all back in, and I think we're doing okay. Drive shaft as well. This can all go back on now. So as you see, we had to actually take all the wheels off and stuff to get to the gearbox again. So we've already taken these off once before, and now we're doing it a second time. Kind of why we skipped forward a little bit. Yeah, there was a lot of toing and throwing and back and forth, which isn't brilliant. It's very time consuming if you make them kind of mistakes. We should have dealt with the gearbox earlier. But you can only learn these lessons by doing them. That's the big thing. I'm talking about wasting time and not realising you should do one bit while you're there. This is where we realised we'd messed up. Now, we've already found via diagnostics and examination, piston with conrod needed replacing. So all the engine work we'd done previously, we are speeding through this as we take it all apart again. The engine work we'd done with the camshaft and stuff earlier had to be redone because we need to get to the pistons. And the pistons are right underneath the engine, but to get to them you need to take off the top of it all, which meant all the cam gears, camshafts, everything needed to come back out. Rather than you watching us take everything off again, which we've already done once and put back together once today, we'll speed through it just so we can see what we did. So that's the top of the block off. We now need to take all this stuff off the sides, and then we can go underneath. In a minute, we're just making sure there's everything off around the sides. Perfect. Underneath the car, take off the oil. Good job, we've already emptied the oil out. And look, there's loads of things holding them in place. Again, we need to take the drive axles off again. How many times have we done that so far today? And the gearbox needs to come out so we can get to the camshaft. This was what took time, was because these little errors meant we had to redo things. But it's easily done. This is the first time really working this far in depth of an engine. Most of our engine work has been on the cam gears and things. We've never really had to do with pistons yet. This is the first, and as you can see, the pistons definitely need replacing. 2 in the middle there are red. Taking them all out, just to be sure. The other 2 are yellow and 2 are red. But I just wanted to make sure we got the right ones. And there we go, confirmation. Some of the holders underneath as well. There are parts we hadn't discovered yet. They need replacing. So, in a way, it's good we made the mistake because we had to have a look underneath to get the bits out that also needed replacing. To find those parts probably would have taken us forever if we hadn't realised that we also needed to replace the pistons. At the same time, it's kind of a cheat, it's kind of not, it's in the game, but you can highlight a part. As long as the part is on your jobs list, you can highlight it, and it shows you where it is, which then gives you an indication of how to get to it. I'm going to try not to use it very often, but at that point I didn't know what was needed to be able to get the pistons out, as we hadn't done that kind of job before. So I highlighted it up just to see exactly where they were, and that kind of led me to know what I needed to take off to get into them. Now we've learned that lesson. We won't make that mistake again, hopefully. Fingers crossed, you never know. But now it's time to put everything back. So we're going to speed it up again as we put everything back on. Again, this can be very tedious, putting the little caps back on to hold everything underneath. It's a bit of up and down, but this had to be done in this order, otherwise it wouldn't go back together. So gearbox going back as well. Something we'd already done once already today. All the drive axle on the wheels again. While the car's up, it made sense to put this back on. Now we can work on the top of the engine again. All the parts. Camshafts. Everything like that can all go back on. All the little caps on top of those as well. As I say, this car did take us 2 hours in total. Obviously condensed down for this video. I didn't think you'd want to watch 2 hours of us taking bits off, putting them back together, taking them off again because we've messed up. It took time. Timing, gears and stuff can go back on. Throttle. And I think we're okay. Right, what is left? So that is all done, all ticked, looking nice. We have 4 undiscovered parts. So at this point I got really fed up. I couldn't find these 4 undiscovered parts. So we put all the liquids in, took it to the test track, and lo and behold, 4 more rubber bushings. I then spent another half an hour to 45 minutes searching the car for these rubber bushings, and we finally found them. 4 rubber bushings, on top of the ones we'd already replaced earlier. I don't know how many rubber bushings are on a car in total, but it is ridiculous. They are so hard to find as well at times. They're so hidden away in little corners. There's another one there. You've got to look really in depth at the suspension. It seems to be every corner of the suspension is a rubber bush. There are so many of them. Hence the title of the video. Rubber bushings are my new enemy. All the liquid's already back in the car because we took it to the test tracks. That's something at least. So now we can sell everything. I think we're done. I'm hoping we are. It's taken us a while. As I say, 2 hours in real time to do this one car. But there was a lot of work involved. We did have to go back on ourselves a couple of times as well. But you learn these lessons. And we're just going to double check. Is everything done? Everything is ticked there. First page, second page, third page. We are all done. Car is finished. Happy days. And we refilled the oil. And changed it. So, this whole car in total, we spent a total of £2,839 on parts. That's probably the biggest amount we spent so far. We gained a profit of £1,605, which isn't bad considering we bought a load of diagnostic equipment as well. And I forgot we'd also got a crate from previous story casts. We'll open that now and have a look. Bonus XP, nicely done. Little bonus credits, not a massive amount, but a little bit. Every little helps. We go on to today's crate from the story car we've just finished. Another 2 cards to pick as well. What are we going to receive this time? We get a bonus barn location. Can't use them yet. And more XP bonus. We can use the barn locations, but I'm holding off until we've kind of spent the money we need on upgrades. We have got 4 skill points as well, and I did think the amount of stuff we'd taken on and off on the car took time. So would it be worth increasing our screwing speed now? Considering we knew it slowed us down earlier. So we're going to take an upgrade there. And we're going to do... Well, considering the other one, to be fair. I'm not sure. I think we'll leave it at that, to be honest. So that is it for today. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the series. If you are, don't forget to subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.